Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning for our session on Outlook on International Education in Times of COVID, powered by the Private Client Group of Kotak Securities. Before we start the webinar, I would like to introduce Akshay, who leads the investment product practice at PCG, to run you through a small presentation about the Private Client Group. Akshay, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ketki, and thank you all for joining us. Now, most of you would know us, but for those of you who don't, I'll just take a couple of minutes before we start the much-awaited session by the Red Pen. Just give me a minute. I'll just share the screen. Yeah. So the Kotak Group, as most of you would be aware, is India's largest wealth manager, and we currently manage in excess of 2.5 lakh crores of assets. Kotak Securities is a fully owned subsidiary of the Kotak Mahindra Bank and has been one of the leaders in the equity market for the last 25 years. Private Client Group within Kotak Securities, which is bringing you this webinar, is the vertical dedicated to the differentiated needs of high net worth individuals. Now, looking at our proposition, apart from our deep expertise into direct equity backed by our unquestionable research prowess, we also help you protect and grow your wealth with well-diversified portfolio solutions and low-cost offerings like direct mutual fund. We also help you with your banking and credit needs, and we have offerings like stock lending and borrowing mechanism. So in terms of direct equity offerings, depending upon your requirements, so we have strategies which help you generate alpha in the long as well as short term. We have derivatives, so we have a very strong team, research analyst team, which helps you with derivative analysis as well. As and when available, we bring to you private placement and unlisted opportunities as well. SLBM is something that I spoke to you about, is something that helps you leverage your idle portfolio stocks, which basically helps provide lending opportunities which help you earn from your dormant investments. Apart from that, as and when there are arbitrage opportunities in the form of buybacks or in any other form, we keep bringing to you from time to time. Now I'll just spend a minute to give you a glimpse of our investment process, which begins by identifying your needs and assessing your risk appetite. Once we have enough clarity on that, we always recommend that you diversify through the right asset allocation and find the adequate product fit for you. Once the portfolio is constructed, we ensure that there are regular updates and reviews on the same. So asset allocation is something that I mentioned. It helps you balance your risk and reward so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. We always recommend that you have your investments spread across different asset classes. For those of you who are into trading, we have a very robust platform which is also backed by offerings such as free intraday trading. For a small subscription amount, you can get free intraday trading throughout the year, along with zero account opening fee and low brokerage on delivery trades. So we have trading platforms across app, web, and we also have the TradeSmart terminal. So it's a time tested platform which has been there for a long time, and it's a very, very robust platform. In terms of research process, our top-notch research helps us take decisions like avoiding credit risk from 2018, which has immensely helped our client portfolios, and shifting our stance between equity and debt. And then within that, between large and mid-cap basis, the valuations. Apart from all of that, on being a part of PCG, you get access to all our research, client meets, and conferences. So we want this to be a bilateral process where you also grow your knowledge and wealth with us. In this entire journey, you will be handholded by a relationship manager who would be your one-point contact through this entire process. You will also have the support of our excellent customer service team. So that is broadly from all that I have from my side. I'll hand it over back to Ketki. Over to you, Ketki.
Thank you, Akshay, for sharing this insightful information with all of us. I would now like to introduce our guest speakers today, Kimberly Dixit and Namita Mehta. Kimberly Dixit is the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen. Kim has nearly a decade of experience as an independent education consultant for undergraduate, postgraduate, and MBA applicants. In the past, she has taught undergraduate courses at Duke University and taught at the Stanford University as a postdoctoral teaching fellow in the humanities. Through her regular Hindustan Times newspaper column, Kim offers study abroad advice to readers across India. In Mumbai, she has conducted courses in anthropology at St. Xavier's College and writing workshops at the American Center. Please welcome Kim Dikshit. I would now like to introduce our second speaker, Namita Mehta, who is the president and partner at the Red Pen. Namita led the University Guidance Counseling Department at B.D. Somani International School in Mumbai for over 3 years. As an in-house counselor, she advised students on effective profile development, managed the international university application process, and developed relationships with the university admission offices. Namita also specializes in training applicants for Oxford and Cambridge interview process. Please join me in welcoming both Kim and Namita. We would now start off the session.
Thank you, Ketki. It's really nice to be here today, and I really appreciate everybody joining us on a Saturday morning. I know it's a strange time to put such things on your schedule, but it's, I think, really important to discuss these things. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And there we go. Presenting. All right. So as I said, here we are today to discuss, the outlook on international education in the times of COVID. So a lot of things at this time have remained the same, and a lot of things have changed. So today we're just going to kind of talk about both what is required and what those things are and always have been, and then also how they've changed in the next few years. I think you've been introduced to me and Namita, and I'll just tell you a little bit about our organization, the Red Pen. We're based in Mumbai. We started our company 9 years ago in Mumbai with a sort of eye towards helping Indian families navigate the global admissions process and really understand, how to find the best fit for them. We service families and students at all levels of education. So whether it's, preparing for college, applying to college, postgraduate studies, MBA applications, as well as boarding and day schools. And we are also counselors and consultants to many schools around the world and also in India to kind of help them establish their university guidance departments. So that's what we do, and we're affiliated with several global counselor organizations. It helps us, kind of stay on top of global trends and also get insights directly from universities and admissions officers and understand the best practices from our colleagues around the world. So that's the Red Pen. And like I said, we've always, we're very global. We've always had consultants working with us on our team who are based all over the world, who've studied all over the world. We've helped families across the world from, the Middle East to Japan, Hong Kong, even the US. So we've always had a kind of perspective that was very inclusive when it comes to geography. And now that sort of everything has gone online, I think we are really well positioned to continue supporting everyone in the same way that we always have. So what I'm going to talk about first is just, when it comes to applications, and a lot of this relates directly to undergraduate applications, but it's actually true for applications to postgraduate and MBA programs to a large extent as well. So, if there are specific questions about whether something applies, you can always ask in the Q&A later, but mostly this is all information and components of the application process that apply to, all levels of education. And I just wanted to also say Namita is on here with me, and she will jump in at any point to kind of add or redirect the discussion here. Namita, anything to add right now?
No, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you again to Kotak for inviting us to present to all of you. So yeah, let's get started. I think what we want to do first is just to kind of explain the components of a global application. Some of these components that Kim mentioned are across different different ages as well, whether they're looking at the undergrad, postgraduate, graduate, or MBA level, but also across different geographies. So we want to speak about them first, and then we're going to speak about what's changed during COVID times, how you can kind of get ahead of yourself, and just give you some tips and advice to kind of navigate this process at the moment in this current turbulent time. So let me start by talking a little bit about data. So the data bubble on this slide is the biggest for a reason. It is the biggest because the data, which is your grades and the test scores and the overall grades that you submit to any university that you apply to at any level, is in fact the most important thing that global institutions at all levels are looking for. They really do want to make sure that you're going to be successful academically in their institution. So they really do care about your grades and your data points. So let me quickly just explain what we have in the data bubble. The first thing is your college prep grades or the exams. So what we mean by that is, it's what subjects are you studying in high school, and how have you fared in any exams that you have done, whether you're in the Indian curriculum or whether you're studying in the IB curriculum. What subjects have you taken, and how well have you done? Not just on those final board examinations that count for most Indian college admissions, but even how you've been faring in school. In the term-to-term grades that you're getting. That is something that a lot of global universities will look at. The strength of your curriculum is important as well, to especially universities abroad, because they want to make sure that you're taking a strong curriculum and that you have the right subjects. But I just want to say here that it's a misconception that if you want to go abroad to study, you must study the IB. That's not true. And in fact, with the Red Pen, we've worked with several students who've been in Indian national and state boards, and they've done very, very well. So they do assess, however, that you're taking the right subjects, that you're challenging yourself by just and that's what I mean by the strength of the curriculum. Standardized test scores. Some universities have, asked students to take additional tests, like I'm sure you've all heard of the ACT or the SAT, the IELTS test, the TOEFL English language proficiency tests. There are specific tests for UK universities as well, and they do take this into consideration in the application process. Some more to a higher extent than others. And given the current situation right now, this is one of the major things that have changed, and we'll be speaking about that. And the last thing is your overall grades. We are, used to in India just focusing on only, board mark results, and what did you get at the end of the 10th board, or how are you faring, how did you fare at the end of the 12th grade, which, does stand true for some institutions globally, but there are many colleges that do also look at your overall grades. If you are looking at a postgrad program as well, they do care about how you fared in your undergraduate level, what your GPA was, and which college you're coming from. So that's the data. I'm going to now ask Kim to speak a little bit about the voice and the talent.
Yeah, so basically the voice, thank you, Namita, the voice and talent components of the application are a lot of what is being affected by the COVID lockdown situation for many students. When it comes to things like, how does a student pursue extracurricular activities or demonstrate leadership or, engage with a particular interest or something like that when they can't leave their house. So, there's a lot of concern among students about, how do we do that? What can we do to kind of continue building our profile and pursuing the things that will help us stand out in the application process when we can't sort of go out and do those things. So, we do suggest to students a lot of resources around, a lot of, again, continuing with online resources and virtual projects and things like that. So there are still things that students can do to stand out. And I think it's not really advisable for applicants to say, well, it's hard for everybody, so I'm not going to do anything. That is never going to kind of help you set yourself apart from the rest of the application. So the more that students can continue to do in this area, the better, and the more kind of creative and innovative they can get about how to do that in these challenging times is also important. And so when it comes to voice is the part of the application where, the student, like as Namita explained about data is sort of what the colleges need to see to understand that you're going to succeed and you're going to do well and you can handle the academic rigor. But they want to understand, who you are as a person. So I might have 100 students with amazing grades and test scores, and I might be able to only admit 50 of them. So I have 50 more. So I need to get rid of 50 students. So I need to hear their voice. I need to understand the kind of person they are. I need to understand what matters to them. If they're engaged in extracurricular activities or talents, I need to understand what are the reasons for them doing that. Essays are an opportunity for students to really connect the dots to their other interests and say, because I always excelled in school in the sciences, it was really exciting for me to do a hands-on project in robotics. So, the essay can explain why that was so interesting to the student, why the student wanted to kind of structure their time in that way. And the admissions officers always tell us that, the reading the essays and the recommendations really gives them the more complete and holistic view of a student, and of an applicant. And like I said, because so many programs are so competitive, they really need that extra insight to decide, is this person a good fit for our program? Do they understand what we're offering? Will we be able to meet their needs? Are they going to get what they're looking for out of our program? So the the thing is that with the current situation where admissions offices know that grades, especially in the last term, have been awarded based on virtual learning and maybe even exam results. If we're talking about 10th or 12th grade board exam results, even college board exam results may be based on somewhat compromised, teaching or whatever. So they have to take that into account. They're most institutions will look at that context holistically. But these essays and the recommendation letters and demonstrated interest, that is, what a student reaches out and says to the admissions office in person, really are things that they're going to be looking at a little more closely in the coming years, because they need that extra contextual information to interpret what it is that they're seeing in student records. So it's going to become as important as ever. So recommendations are one of the things that, are a very important part of the admissions process globally. And depending on where an applicant is applying, you need either 2 or 1 or 3 recommendations. So it's important to get that sorted out and get it in line. And a lot of times, depending on the institution that you're coming from, the college or the school, the faculty aren't necessarily well versed in how to write a recommendation letter. So I always I encourage students to take the extra time, start planning ahead to prep a teacher or a counselor or an administrator on what those letters of recommendation, what's required in those, and helping helping spend some time on getting that information where it needs to be, so that it gives insight. So it gives insight to the admissions office. I think that when it comes to talent and like I said, I think students really need to kind of find innovative ways to pursue their talents and interests at this time, and that's something that admissions offices will definitely be looking for. The other thing that I think the admissions officers have told us that they are really going to be paying more attention to this year are interviews. So interviews are oftentimes optional, or some colleges, if they're very, very large programs, they don't actually conduct interviews. So depending on where you're applying, you may or may not have an interview, but interviews are an opportunity for students to, again, give some background to the choices they've made, give some context to the situation they've come from, and really help the admissions representatives understand them a little bit more deeply. So I think when it comes to what this is, I guess what we're trying to say here is these are the things that have always mattered in any college admissions, any postgraduate program admissions, or even in MBA programs. These are all the components that you have to kind of think about, having them lined up, and they sort of matter to varying degrees in different geographies. And they still all matter, but as we come out of COVID into the next cycle of applications, hopefully coming out, we need to think about specifically the context of the data. The context of the data is going to be different in these years. The voice needs to have a strong explanation for different choices that were made and different perspectives that students have about why they've chosen a particular institution, and then the talent, needs to show some innovation and creativity around pursuing interests and taking initiative. So these are the things that have always mattered, but there are a few elements of them that have changed a lot. Okay, so taking it on to the next slide, I think we have we have sort of broken this out for students who are applying, who are planning to apply right now, and maybe even for those who are planning to apply in the
next 2 years.
The next 2 years, yeah. So is this the right slide, Namita?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, fine. All right. So should I go ahead with this? Or are you doing?
Yes, go ahead, and then I'll
okay. So one of the things that, So one of the things that students who are about to apply and maybe start college in fall of 2021 are worried about is, how do I find a college? How do I select a college? So this kind of goes back to what I was saying about, the admissions office wants to know, do you know them well? And have you made an effort to get to know them? Have you made an effort to understand their college? Because if you just say, well, I was going to go on a college tour and visit all these campuses, but now I can't, so I'm just going to kind of choose based on, global rankings. That's really not going to serve you too well, because it isn't really going to show that you've understood the unique proposition of each and every college that you're applying to. And that's very important when college admissions is so selective. It's really important for, a college to understand that, you'd know the difference between college X and college Y. And I'm applying to you, which is college X, because of what you offer and, and the kind of student that I am. So making that very clear that, you're very serious about your choices and the direction you're going in. So along those lines, colleges are offering tons and tons of virtual tours and virtual events, which I really encourage all students who are applying to attend those events. So just as an example, the other day I was working with a student who was applying to Harvard Business School, and I went on Harvard Business School's admissions page, and they have, in a week, I would say 4 to 6 different events around different topics. So, women in business, business and impact investing, business and agriculture, and water resource management. Really, really niche and unique events in their admissions page that I think, if you were an applicant who's interested in any of those topics, or you fall into any of those categories, you would really learn a lot about the right fit for you at that university. And that translates really well into the application when they ask you, why do you want to attend? What should we know about your application? So it's very important to take the time to attend those events and listen to, what a college says about itself and what it offers, and think about how you can align that with your own interests. I think some of those are live, some of them are recorded, but I think when there are live ones, getting specific questions answered is also very, very important. And once you've done all of that, and if you think, I listened to this talk on, people who are innovating in business and agriculture management, and I really want to connect with a faculty member and understand more about, what do they offer. Reaching out and doing that is another very valuable kind of step that a student can take, that an applicant can take to understand and learn more about the program, but also to get on the radar of the faculty or the admissions office that you're very, very interested in. I don't suggest that students do that for every single college they're applying to, but maybe your top choices. It's very good at this point to reach out and let them know that your interest is sincere and you have you have every intention of following through with your admission, because that's something that colleges are very concerned about, especially now, that they want to know that applicants who've applied and been admitted are serious about coming, because they're now in a position, where they need to, the yield of admitted students needs to be high for them, because they cannot sort of afford empty seats. Now, that's not to say that, if you're not a qualified student, you're going to get admitted just because you've kind of demonstrated your interest and, pestered them to the point where they admit you. That doesn't really happen. But like I said, in a college where there's 100 qualified applicants and 50 seats, you can stand out by, making yourself, giving your application that extra edge and putting a face to a name. Sometimes that really does help. So, that's that's one of these are the ways that that students can really sort of identify the right fit colleges for them.
Yeah, I'm just going to pipe in there, Kim. I think, about a month ago, the Red Pen organized a series of webinars with 40 global admissions officers across 40 institutions around the world, India, US, UK, Canada, France, and we have these admissions officers on, and we invited prospective students to come and listen to them. And they all were very open to students, reaching out to them and asking questions and, really making an effort to kind of get to know that particular university. So I think it is important that while you are doing your college research, to obviously use the resources that are available online. But if you have any other extra questions, or you want to kind of reach out to someone, they will respond. I mean, they're like all of us sitting at home right now. So are they, and they miss traveling. They want to connect with you guys. So do reach out to them and ask them, and they will definitely direct you and help you out.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think I'm going to let you talk a little bit more now about this process of interviews and testing for 2021 fall.
Okay. So thank you, Kim. So I'm sure you all know that many global universities, even universities in India, admission is really determined by your testing, or testing and interviews are a huge component of the process of applying to university or college. But this is kind of the part where things are changing a lot. A lot of the time, testing would happen at a center. You would have to go there. You'd have to sign up in advance. But given the COVID situation, things are, now there's been a lot of shifts. So I do want to spend a little bit of time and talk about that. Let me start with the US. I'm sure many of you have heard that a lot of universities in America ask for either the ACT or the SAT. Now, those are standardized tests that universities look at in addition to obviously your high school grades. It's another data point that they use to evaluate your application. And it's been quite important. The College Board, the company that conducts the SAT, has been around pre-World War II. And these tests are something that the US universities understand. It just puts you on the same level, playing the playing field with all the other applicants that are applying from different curricula and different school. Now, because you cannot actually go and sit some of these tests now, or there was always a question mark about whether these centers are opening. A lot of US universities have gone test optional for the upcoming cycle. Now, that means that you can apply to those universities without submitting an SAT or an ACT score, which is good news because obviously not everyone has access to do these tests, and they better even be able to find a center before their deadline, which is going to be at the end of this year. However, I do want to say that if you are looking at very highly competitive colleges and you haven't had a chance to do the testing, and a center does open up in your vicinity, it's in your interest to do it, because if they have an extra data point to evaluate you with, that's only going to help. But again, if you don't, that's absolutely fine. If you're sitting in a place where it takes you a couple of hours to get to a center and you're not able to access it, and your area is in a lockdown, then don't worry about it. But if you are, if your school is a center, I think there are a couple of schools in Mumbai that are centers and they are going to be offering the test, and you attend that school, it's worth going ahead and doing that test. And a lot for MBA, the GMAT has gone online. Kim, I'm going to let you speak a little bit more about that at the end. So you can speak about the MBA testing. The other major testing that does happen is for Oxford and Cambridge. I mean, traditionally, they would invite prospective students onto their campuses to do the testing, or they would do it, or they would have Cambridge flies out a cohort to every region where they have applicants, and then they conduct tests. They conduct the interview face to face. Both Oxford and Cambridge have announced that for their undergraduate applications, there's going to be no face-to-face testing, face-to-face interviews this year, and the interviews are a major component of that application process. So there are tests that you also need to take for these applications, and those are going to happen either in your school or they're going to be invigilated in centers when things open up. Again, things are up in the air, but they intend to still go ahead with that testing. So the best way to find out about that is to just kind of stay up to date on their website, and they will indicate to you, when you can schedule those tests. A lot of liberal arts colleges in India, conduct testing, and then they have an interview day. And many of them have announced they're moving this online this year. So again, they're not eliminating it from the process, but they are going to be, having testing done either, coordinating with your school or conducting, interviews online in a group session or in an individual capacity, depending on what they've done. My general advice is that many of these universities and many colleges around the world are also waiting. They're not sure of exactly when they want to have these tests, whether they can ask you to do it at a center or whether they're going to ask you to do it online. So the best thing is to just check their update, their websites for updates, and they will let you know. And again, if you are a candidate that cannot access the test or you aren't able to kind of do it, they will definitely take that into consideration. So just bear that in mind. Kim, do you want to say something about the GMAT and the GRE? Yeah.
So I just to say that it hasn't really sort of the GRE is being offered online. The GMAT was being offered online, but now a lot of programs have a lot of students don't want to take the GMAT online because of the whiteboard issues. And so, the centers are starting to open, testing is becoming available. But so far we have not seen really any MBA programs or postgraduate programs who've waived this requirement. So it's important to know that, because I think there's a lot of undergraduate institutions that have said, we're waiving it and we understand. But again, I think it's very different for postgraduate programs. And so they still do expect that testing to be done. There are some exceptions. And as you said, Namita, they're also waiting. They're also watching. And I think that, if it's an extreme hardship for you for some reason to sit for these exams, it's worth emailing the admissions office, explaining your situation, and also maybe offering them another form of testing or proficiency, demonstrating proficiency that you can provide instead. Because a lot of times, they may not be aware of the rigor of, say, your, CA exams or something like that. That you've ranked in or something, so those kinds of things. Some programs are willing to accept that in lieu of these tests. So, if you have some other way of demonstrating proficiency in certain areas, it's important to let them know and let them know why it's why there's some hardship for you to take the test. So what the especially in the U.S. what they're interested in making sure that they're providing equal access to applications. So if you can make a case that you don't have equal access and you're being excluded in a way that is not in your control, then sometimes they can become they can make exceptions. So just do try to do that if that's your situation. But for now, they are still expecting the test scores to come. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, for students who are about to, we do know that a lot of students have applied last year and have been admitted to programs and are sort of wondering what to do and how to proceed now that they don't know if they can travel and other situations have become really complicated. So Namita, I'll let you speak a little bit about the logistics.
Yes, I think this is a trying time for everyone. You're really thinking about should I send my kid to college? Should I not? You might be worried, even if you're a student yourself, how will I be able to come back? What if the virus breaks out on campus? I'm sure you've all thought about these questions, and they're very, very valid. I think at some point you have to have this family discussion and then decide what you want to do. I think one of the things that we're hearing from universities, and I think it's also important, is that you have to make a decision. Either you're going to take the plunge or you're not. So the first thing is that, stay constantly in touch with the university that has admitted you and that you seriously want to attend, and, be up to date with how they're handling the situation. Most universities have COVID pages now, and they keep telling families and prospective students about how they are managing the situation, and, what they're going to do if a virus case breaks out, and what are the quarantine procedures. They're being very transparent. In fact, a lot of the British boarding schools are due to open in September, and they've already started, inviting students back on campus a couple of weeks early so that they can manage the quarantine for you. They're already starting the process. So many of them are thinking ahead. But if you do have a place to go this fall and you want to take it, I think the first thing that you need to do is to just accept the place and then pay the deposit. The more that you procrastinate and the more that you wait and think, all the other work is going to get delayed. And also, if you think of it the other way, that if you aren't going to take the space, then they can give it to another worthy student that's on the wait list. So just think about that. I don't think the COVID situation is going to magically disappear, or things are just going to go back to normal for a while. So we are going to be on this online/offline world for a while. So that's something you do need to think about. The minute that you've decided that you do want to, go ahead and attend the university, then you need to start completing the paperwork that's necessary. A bunch of our students who are going to be going to British boarding schools have already started doing their medical checkups. They've already started, working on the visa papers, and the boarding schools are very much supporting them here. You need to kind of stay abreast and get all of that done in a timely fashion. And once that happens, the campuses will open, and they'll ask you to apply for accommodation. So you should get ahead of the curve and start doing that. And then obviously start planning your travel to campus once they announce what their situation is going to be. Georgetown University in the U.S., for example, announced that that all freshmen are allowed on campus at the beginning of the fall, but they must be by Thanksgiving, which is around the end of November. So they are kind of maybe doing kind of a rotation system. Maybe your college is offering like half online, half offline courses. They're doing something where they invite, the first 2 years, freshmen and sophomores for the first couple of semesters, and then move on to juniors and seniors in the following semester. So they really are trying to think of, ways to make this the most engaging for you. But yes, I think there will definitely be some capacity of online learning happening for students that are going to be enrolling in the university this year at all levels, whether you're going to be staying at a local college in India or whether you're going to be going to a university abroad. Even if you are on campus, they might allow you to just have a face-to-face programs just for a few classes and then do some online as well. So do bear that in mind. I think that's it. I've covered most of this, Kim. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think Namita kind of covered the situation. If you want to go, if you're planning to go, you've understood the risks, you've understood the benefits, and you've decided to go. But if you're in a situation where you're not really still sure, and you're considering deferring your admission or taking a gap year, that's also very much a legitimate way forward at this stage. So, but the first thing you have to do is you have to apply for the deferral with the university, or talk with them about whether it's going to be possible. Because some institutions will say, that's just not possible for various reasons. And so you'll just need to reject your offer and reapply the next year. So depending on what the institution says, I think you need to plan accordingly. So assuming that you're able to get a deferral, another thing that you need to consider is, what will you do in the gap year? So if you just say, I don't want to study online, and I don't want to go to the campus because it's too risky. So I'm just going to not go. But you need to have a plan of what you are going to do, because oftentimes even to grant the deferral, colleges will ask you, what's your plan, And so if you say, I have this internship lined up, or I'm going to continue working with an NGO that I've been volunteering at, or I'm going to, work at a local, restaurant, cafe to earn money, or whatever it is, anything, you need to have a plan, because sitting at home and, gaming and watching Netflix is not a plan for a year. So you need to have a plan and figure out what you're going to do in that year, so that you're productive and you're not wasting it. So that's the other. I'm just going to
pipe in there. I mean, I think for those students who end up taking a gap year and taking a deferral year, the universities will, if you're going to be applying to a university during your gap year, there's an essay called a gap year essay that you will need to write about and explain to them what you did in that 1 year. And obviously, if you are, applying for a deferral, they're going to ask you why, and simply just saying that, I don't want to get sick, or I can't risk, coming. It's not going to be a justifiable reason.
Right. So I mean, I think that there's a lot that you need to really think about if you're going to stay back and not go. If you decide not to go, what you can do, there's some options here, online skill building, knowledge building. So suppose you you've taken economics and math in school, but you've never taken accounting. So you decide to do, an accounting course online or something. So that's a good use of time. You can, like I said, internships, volunteering, and some cases, a student might decide to not take their offer and instead earn credits online through a lower cost option. There are many of those right now coming out where you can earn credits, and then you can apply next year as a transfer student, and you'll have, 1 or more years of transferable credits to join a university in the second or third year. So, I mean, those are all sort of very legitimate options, and that will help you, make the best use of the year off. And again, developing a personal project or doing something, that it's constructive and shows initiative is also a great use of your time. I think we just wanted to really highlight this because I think when the whole COVID situation started, many families were like, we're definitely not going to pay exorbitant fees for virtual school or virtual university, which is understandable. But then as they watched the months go by and they watched their children not really sort of do anything else, then a lot of people have said, actually online learning is great because otherwise the kids just will sit around and do nothing. So, there's a lot of ways you have to look at this in your own situation and your own levels of motivation. And it's a very personal decision, but there are a lot of things you can do if you decide to stay back, but there are a lot of good reasons to go ahead as well. So whatever you decide, just make sure you've planned accordingly and taken all the appropriate steps. So I think now we're going to open this up to question and answer. So Ketki, is that I think handing it back to you. This is us, the Red Pen. You can follow us on all these social handles to stay updated with admissions information and also, learn about different aspects of the application process. As the situation changes, we are kind of, blogging and posting on socials about different important updates in the global admission space. So do follow us on our social handles.
Thank you so much, Kim and Namita. I think there are certain questions in the audience's mind and which I would like to ask on their behalf. So the first question is, with the political uncertainty in the US, do you still see it being as a popular option as it has been all this while?
I guess I'll answer that question, Namita.
Go ahead.
You can add to it. But I mean, I definitely think that, in the 4 years that this administration in the U.S. has been elected, I think we've seen a lot of threats to the international student kind of experience. But so far, nothing has actually changed. But now, recently, there was, of course, last week there was this sort of order that international students who were studying virtually had to leave the country. Now that's the first step we've taken where we saw that something had actually changed for international students, and there was quite a lot of uproar, and actually the order was walked back. So it's not. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I completely acknowledge that it's very unstable right now in the U.S. when it comes to a lot of things, not just education. And so all of that instability is definitely a reason to reconsider and look at other geographies for sure. But whether I think that, colleges, whether I think that, I think this was actually a good indication that it is, international students are a very, very valuable element to the U.S. economy, the diversity of experience that universities want students to have, etc. So it's not the fact that it was walked back is actually a very good sign and actually sort of speaks to to the possibility of anything so dramatic happening again. I think it's something that will really have to be thought about more carefully because of the way that people reacted to this one. Institutions reacted to this situation. So, I mean, I guess that's my view. But like I said, I think there's a lot to recommend many, many other places in the world with great educational opportunities. And we've seen a lot of students, either add those as alternatives or completely shift to, Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world and away from the U.S. Do you want to add anything, Namita?
No, I think you said it perfectly. I think with everything that we've been hearing over the last few months, there's obviously this feeling inside of you of being unsure and wondering what's going to happen, or if my kid goes, will they be able to stay back and all of that. So I think like Kim just said right now. I don't think the political situation has changed. I mean, it's not like, if you're an international student like that you were, say, a year ago, 3 years ago, you still have the same possibilities and the same options for yourself. It's not like you have to come back early or not. But parents and families that we've been working with are just casting a wider net, and this is a combination of the COVID situation and the political situation as well. And in previously in the UK, for example, you were not allowed to stay back and work, but now that's also changed. And after Brexit, they allow international students to remain in the United Kingdom for up to 2 years after they finish their degree to get work experience. So with that, and Canada's policies of also working after getting a degree, parents are looking at these options also very favorably, and oftentimes, just like applying to multiple destinations and then just deciding where to finally enroll in, after they have the admissions on the table. So, I do think that the education landscape is changing in a way where parents and students are just looking at different geographies rather than just focusing on just the US, or I'm just going to stay back in India.
Thank you, Kim and Namita, for answering that. Our next question is, so we all heard you all talk about deferrals and what all the aspiring students should put in their applications. But then the next question is that what do we do in case the college doesn't accept deferrals?
Yeah, so I did mention that if the college doesn't accept a deferral, then you will have to decide, are you willing to do the online learning, virtual learning if they're offering it? Or you just reject the offer and you have to reapply. And usually, I think you can try to get some certainty around that, just explaining the situation and explaining that, you'd like to reapply. And oftentimes the admissions office will say, that's fine, we'll take that into account when you reapply, that you were once admitted and all of that. But the thing is that, every year is a different year. I mean, that's a fact. Every year is, you may have been a great applicant, and you may have been chosen amongst the pool of applicants in this year, but you may not be next year. So depending on how selective the institution is, you are taking a risk. There's definitely a risk there. But if a college isn't granting a deferral, and you don't want to study online, and you don't want to go because of whatever risks, then your only option really is to reject the offer. But I do suggest that you have a personal interaction with somebody before doing that, and explain that, the rejection isn't because you don't want to attend their college, it's because you can't come, or you can't afford it or whatever, just sort of giving them a lot of context around your choice so that if you do decide to reapply, they'd look favorably upon it.
I think this applies to all global institutions, and even institutions in India as well. Because, obviously with a lot of colleges in India, there's no kind of clarity on whether they're opening or not. Especially if we're talking about the Indian liberal arts colleges where there's, a campus where you have to physically travel and, be there. Just we have an open communication line with them and explain to them your situation. But then, yes, at the end of the day, if they don't accept the deferral, you will just have to, either bite the bullet and enroll, or just, reject the offer and then reapply as a freshman.
Right. And I also wanted to just add, sorry, I don't know if this question is pertaining to undergraduate or postgraduate studies, but when it comes to, that would also sort of that would also determine what the course of action would be, right? So if you're an undergraduate student and that you're not being granted a deferral, then I think, and you really don't want to take any of the options that are in front of you, it is fine to reject the offer. I mean, there are thousands of institutions around the world that you can reapply to. And if you really don't want to waste the year, like I said, there are a lot of institutions, organizations that are offering virtual learning at a low cost for credit. So then you can earn credit through other providers and then transfer that credit into another institution eventually as a second or third year student. So there are all these kind of innovative options that are coming up. And in fact, most of them have always existed. It's just that people didn't want to take those tracks, but now they're sort of much more appealing. So I'm just saying that if it's an undergraduate case, that's definitely an option. If it's for a postgraduate course that is, let's say, a 1-year course, and they're not giving you a deferral and your option is to do 1 year online, I would not do that. I would not suggest doing that. I would suggest just, continue to work or do whatever, or study in India or do whatever it is you can do until the situation clears up and then reapply.
Sure, thank you so much. The next question is it advisable to go abroad this year if we have admission offer in hand?
Namita, I'll let you answer that question.
Okay, I think we covered a little bit of this in our presentation, but I think that you need to evaluate what your other option is. If the other option is if you have something to do here, and you're going to have a project, or you're going to be busy doing online courses in India, or you have an alternative plan of action, then yes, you can consider whether you want to go abroad or not. But if you are, if you're unsure, then, I think, going ahead with the current program that you have in mind, and, going ahead and doing the online learning, or going ahead and, physically going to the campus does make sense. And the thing is that, these campuses are going to do everything to support you. They're not going to just invite hundreds of international students and then just leave you stranded there. They are going to make sure that, that they have, a contingency plan if the virus does break out, or if something happens on campus, or if students fall sick. And it's worth kind of asking the university those questions. We have a student right now who, he's based in the UK and has been admitted to Georgetown. And they're asking all freshmen to, reach the campus by September and then leave again by November. But they have kind of made a plan, like, what happens to you? How do you get quarantined? And, how are they going to take care of you if you do get COVID? And I think you just have to kind of ask these questions and see whether, you're comfortable with these answers, and then decide about, going abroad or not. And evaluating that with what the other option is, which is like stay in India and do maybe an online program like Kim suggested and build your credits that way, or do a research project online, or just do some other online classes. I mean, you have to kind of evaluate what the two options are and then take a call.
Sure. So the last question, Namita, is would you suggest a management-related research study for a practicing manager who's completed MBA with 13 years of work experience?
Sorry, so you said, would I suggest a what for 13 years of work experience? Can you repeat it?
A management research study. Is there anything that you can suggest related to a management research study for a person who has completed MBA with 13 years of experience?
I would have to research that myself. Nothing comes to my mind at the top of my head. It sounds.
Sorry to interrupt you. There are these research programs where we have these companies that offer research projects to students at all levels, undergrad, postgrad, and if you can get whoever's asked that question to email us, I can connect them to somebody who can help them identify a research project to do at that level. They do connect, students and professionals at all levels of education who are interested in doing some kind of research. So I can connect them.
Sure. There's one more question. The last question is, what is a good GMAT score for London Business School, and what else do they look for an admission in MBA?
So I'll answer that question. So London Business School is one of the most competitive business school MBA programs in the world. So, they are looking for highly looking for, strong GMAT scores. I would say there are always exceptions. There's always a range, but I would say that looking if you're not cracking 700, you need to keep trying. But obviously anything beyond that 750 makes you even stronger. So, that's something that those kinds of business school programs are looking for. But besides that, LBS in particular is very, very concerned that students are choosing them for the right reasons. So it's very important for you as an applicant to do the research on LBS, on the programs they offer, on the network that they provide for, admitted students, and on just kind of their entire ethos and approach. Talk to a lot of alumni, attend their events, learn a lot about how is LBS different? What is their unique proposition? Because if you are just applying to LBS and you'd be equally happy to go to, Kellogg or Wharton, they're not interested in you. They're very interested in students who are interested in them. So it's important to really demonstrate that in all, and they ask very sort of specific questions in their application to kind of figure out, do you understand their programs? So what is it that you hope to gain from the LBS experience, and living in London, and all of those kinds of things that they want to know. And if you just say, what I hope to get from the LBS experience is, great management training and leadership development. I mean, you can get that at any business school. So you really need to understand how is what LBS is offering different from what another great global business school is offering. So that's my advice on LBS. I think that's true really for any of the competitive business schools, but I also think that, because they have a different program than a lot of their peers, they really are looking for the right fit applicant. And when it comes to what they're looking for, they're looking for 4 to 6 years of work experience after undergraduate studies. They're looking for some extracurricular involvement, whether it's some community service or something internally in an organization. They're looking for strong and consistent work experience. So if in those 4 to 6 years you've changed jobs 5 times, that's not okay. So they really want to see that you're kind of on a track to succeed in their program and beyond. So I hope that answers the question.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kim and Namita. I think we are done with the Q&A session here. I think it was a very enriching and extensive webinar and an interactive Q&A session as well. And I'm sure everyone enjoyed listening to your views. So on behalf of our participants in Kotak Securities, I would like to thank you all to take out time and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all the participants as well for joining us today. Have a good day, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.